Welcome. Welcome to Reese Edwards. In South Africa, where I am, 1 in 2 women experience domestic violence, and single mothers make up 44% of households. And child maintenance, although legally required, is not received by over 60% of women with dependent children. Australia is a higher income country. What does the data tell us about child support and economic abuse there?
Thank you for having me, Felicity. I'm phoning in from Adelaide, Australia, the home of the Kaurna people, and your statistics are shocking, and you're quite right. We are a well-resourced country, but I'm going to give you a snapshot, and they're also concerning details as well. So 1 in 4 women have a prevalence of family and domestic violence. 1 in 6 are harmed by economic abuse, and child support is weaponised, and we have 1.9 billion owing in child support. Some research is really clear that 4 in 5 women at the point of separation are harmed by family domestic violence, and we have 84% of women who should be receiving child support that aren't getting that from that $1.9 billion debt.
Sure. Those statistics are really, really scary. But South Africa is such an unequal country. In fact, it's one of the most unequal countries in the world. And we don't even have data. We cannot tell you how much in monetary terms is actually owed to beneficiaries. But we do know that the anecdotal evidence shows us that over 60%. And unfortunately, we don't have a social security system here. So when women fall through the cracks, they fall right down into an abyss. And we see that in our daily lives. So we know that this has a significant impact, not only on the mothers, but also on their children. Could you paint us a picture of what that looks like for women that you work with?
For sure. So child poverty, so first of all, Felicity, I do feel for your single mums in South Africa. But child support here, it's often known as child maintenance. But we have child poverty is very much concentrated in single mother families in Australia, and we've not been able to move that dial. So we've got something really wrong and out of whack with our resources to the high level of poverty that we've got. So it's around 39% of kids that are raised by single mums will live in poverty, and that's around 3 times more than couple families. And so what that means for children is they just miss out. They miss out on having friends over, they miss out on going on school trips, they miss out on sporting, they miss out on those really basic things that are just deemed as regular in other families, such as having a family pet or even having good nutritional food. Like fruit and vegetables in the shopping trolley can be really difficult. And then we lose their richness and talents. And one of the things that women talk about when they're harmed by poverty and they can't protect their children is it's a really lonely life. And we have kids that just want to step up and do much. So when they start to understand that mum can't offer any more financially, they try and protect mum by pretending that they don't want to go on an activity, or they even start suggesting that they might drop out of school so they can earn a bit more money and help out with those bills. So it really does limit the kids' childhood, but it also follows them into early adulthood, and of course beyond.
Sure. Yeah, it's a harsh reality, and it's a global pandemic. And I think that it's just been so normalized by society and governments that women are just required to be resilient and to put a smile on their face and to carry on parenting, because in the absence of that, we know what comes thereafter is the threat of actually losing their children.
Yeah. Absolutely. We bake it in, we tolerate and we expect that single mothers, the default is that they will be financially poor and they may live without safety, and having inadequate systems just seems to be business as usual.
Yeah, and safety is a very significant word there, because it's not just physical safety, it's emotional safety, and it's the financial safety, because with the state of the world economy, I mean, many people are living one paycheck away from bankruptcy. And this is in the absence of getting a maintenance check. That is how women live on a month-to-month basis, because that is part of the weaponization. Is if you are getting it, how much are you going to get? Exactly when are you going to get it? To keep women in that state of anxiety, and that's not even looking at the financial impacts. And whilst our legislation is in the best interest of children, unfortunately, children do not have locus standi, and that is, they can't represent themselves. They are dependent on the primary parent, which in the majority is mothers. And not much is actually provided in our legislation, particularly to protect mothers, because it's in the best interest of children, and the legislation provides for the person who is meant to pay the maintenance. And I'll get into that in a bit on our system, which is very different to yours. Is that the mother is really at the mercy of whatever is the byproduct of protecting the primary, the person responsible for paying the maintenance's actions.
Now, look, I completely agree, and I understand that you have got 92,000 members in your network. And I know that you've already touched on it, but what are some of the other patterns that you've noticed through that lived experience of women?
Um, the patterns are exactly the same, irrespective of the race, the culture, the socioeconomics here, and that is that women give up pursuing maintenance because of the systemic challenges in and they're inherent. We have seen very little progress in the maintenance system that's applying for maintenance as well as recovery. And so women abandon the maintenance system primarily because they've lost faith in the system, and also to protect their emotional well-being. And something that I keep raising and talk about, particularly with all the stakeholders, is that women who are applying for maintenance are being abused. There is invariably a history of abuse. There are protection orders in place, and there is no risk assessments done. The people that deal in this sector, whether it's our maintenance courts or social workers, people within the court system, are not victim-centric, they are not trauma-informed, and women just feel the trauma they experience in the system is worse than them trying to be resilient, be resourceful, and do it without the financial support.
I'm pleased to tell you in Australia we've recognised systems abuse, and child support is one of those systems. So we're starting to recognise that those rules work against women, and often engaging in those rules can make them more unsafe. So that's a really new outcome from Australia, which is positive to report.
Well, I mean, I've been following the progress and the advocacy and the legislation in Australia for many years, including the client vulnerability policy in the banking sector. And I mean, I'm like really disheartened that we are so many years behind, that these conversations are shut down in Parliament, they are ignored. They come up every now and then during our 16 Days of Activism campaign. And unfortunately, I am the only person in this country that actually advocates, creates awareness, lobbies for policy change through the maintenance lens, but even broader, the non-physical forms of abuse as well as economic abuse. And I think part of that is due to our incredibly high statistics of domestic violence, gender-based violence. I think we have one of the highest stats on femicide in the world. We lose close to 4,000 women to femicide in a year. And while they acknowledge that all of these things, so I understand those urgencies, but what they fail to continuously acknowledge is that child support, financial abuse, economic abuse is core to trapping women in abusive relationships. That women often say they choose abuse over poverty because when they leave the relationship, they've been threatened that the finances will be cut off. So when they do eventually, because their lives are in danger, money is immediately cut off. Yet our focus is on saving women's bodies, but the integration of all the stakeholders is ignoring this core. And I think that speaks very much to how much of a patriarchal society South Africa still is.
For sure, for sure. So we've been, well, Single Mother Families Australia partnered with some great people, including Swinburne University Professor Kay Cook, and we've worked really hard for a long time just to get the matter on the table. And we're really clear about what needs to be done. So Australia's system, we have child support, which we call private funds, and then we have a social security system which is from the government, and our system, for reasons that don't make policy sense anymore, we've connected the two. So we're really pushing hard to actually have those systems disconnected, because what happens at the moment in Australia is that child support is based upon having up-to-date information on income. And one of the easy ways that men, predominantly men are the payers, manage to weaponize it, manage to use the loopholes, is they just don't offer a tax return. And so therefore our child support and our family payments are based upon incorrect information. And so we don't really know how much should be going across to children, because the government practices allows for provisional income estimates, which is basically you saying what it is. And it also affects the reliability and the certainty of our government assistance. And that's a cash transfer to help and pay for the cost of children. So by delinking that, we fix up so many problems that are in the Australian system, and it also gives a nod to safety for women. So if that's one key message I would like to leave with the audience, that it has taken years to get here, but we are now talking about it, and we're talking about it in high-level meetings.
I think that the problems that we experience in South Africa are echoed across our continent. And unfortunately, we don't have a central database system. Ours is based on the criminal and the civil procedure, so it's a court process. It is not linked to income. We have a 37% unemployment rate in this country. So it also depends on the disclosure of income to determine what it is, and there is, because we don't work on a tax system, it's not linked to our tax system, it is open to absolute abuse. And most women are unemployed in this country, yet they compensate that by a child grant, for if you meet the requirements, which is only 560 rand a month. And then we still have a relief, which is 370 rand from the COVID days. They haven't removed that because that gives an unemployed mother or a mother on minimal wages 930 rand a month. And when we look at the abject food-based poverty line, which is 796 rand a month, we can see that a huge percentage of women are living on below the abject food poverty baseline. So instead of looking at that, our government goes, we need to just give them enough to survive. So we haven't even got to that point where we can look at these and from our perspective, really sophisticated interventions, to change this. But we are encouraged by the progress that Australia is making, and the UK, and the research that came out last year from Australia. I quote it very often because we can't look at it in isolation. It is used as a tool to manipulate and control and punish. But we're hoping to have more of those conversations, and I really hope that more of our government representatives and other influential stakeholders actually attend the summit this year, so that they can hear from other countries what they have done to protect women and children who are falling out of the safety nets. And as you were saying earlier, is what does this say for our future generation,
And just to wrap it up, because I know we're running out of time, but I do want to bring it home by saying that Australia, as a really rich country, should not have these concerns, that we should never have allowed for such a large debt, and we should never have allowed a system to become so weak that it can be weaponized against women. So I'm really looking forward to being part of those changes. And we do have a fixed child support website that women can jump on, and it has a whole lot of data and resources. And just to let women know that are in Australia, that are struggling, or maybe living in another country that is rich, that we've really got to do a lot more around our settings to protect women. And Felicity, it's been fantastic talking to you, and thank you to Know More and the Centre for Women's Economic Security for allowing this conversation. And let's hope that we can elevate child support to where it really should be, which is supporting kids.
Thank you, Therese, for joining me and this discussion. What we've heard today reflects the lived reality of thousands of families navigating the system that too often overlooks their needs.
Yeah.
From delayed payments to the use of child support as a tool of coercive control, these issues are not isolated. They're systemic, and they demand a systemic response. So as we close, I invite each of you to consider your role in this movement, whether you're a policy maker, service provider, researcher, or community member. Your voice and actions matter. Let's commit to building a system that prioritizes children's well-being, respects caregivers, and ensures the financial support is not a battleground, but a foundation for safety and stability. Thank you for attending.